Here we go. This is Gavagai. I am joined here by Atheist Ranger. Say hello, Atheist Ranger.
Hey, what's up, fellas?
So, um, and this is the first hangout I've been in with Atheist Ranger, and pleased to make your acquaintance here. I just posted this hangout. I've been in some conversations with um, Tommy Hall and company, I guess. I'm going to go ahead and screen share the post. Um, so he posted this thing from the Science Daily, which I don't know what that is, but it's supposedly citing an article from the Association for Psychological Science. I have no idea. I didn't even bother looking this up. And maybe it's valid. I don't know, but the the conclusion is we believe that the human fetus is an active participant in its own development and is collecting information for life after birth. So right there, I find that pretty doubtful that this comes from a credible scientific news source. Just for the fact that
Wait,
they're making those conclusions.
you said it was Science Daily?
That's what I
I
don't know if
believe
it's a
that's a.
website or something.
I've heard of that before. I believe it's a. I think it's like a right-wing science place,
Yeah,
science website.
that sounds about right. So at any rate, and the conversation went a little crazy. My comment here, and it's funny, Atheist Ranger, remember what you said just before, and I mentioned that my comment was very similar, that just about not having memories when we were in the womb. And
Nobody does.
yeah, exactly. And my comment was, well, it was very tongue in cheek, and I said, oh, I remember when I was a fetus, and I said, well, this womb is so great, I can hardly wait to meet my mom and dad. And it's absurd, the whole idea that there's you're not conscious. So what is it that makes us human? Um, and makes us, I mean, what makes us human, I think, is different than what makes us personhood. Personhood is different than humanity. And I think there are good arguments to make that there are even some uh, animals that qualify for personhood over a fetus. And I don't know, Atheist Ranger, you might disagree there. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean there are some. Same thing as you. I mean there are some animal species that I would say do qualify, but I mean uh, these pro-lifers fail to understand that abortion itself is a mixed issue. It will always be a mixed issue,
Yeah.
especially in the science community.
Yeah, well, and that's the big problem. And and Tommy wanted to. Everybody wants to make this. Well, not everybody. The pro life crew wants to make this a black and white issue. It's a person once the sperm and egg are united, and from there on out, it's murder. Well, that's completely nuts. And it's more murky than end of life issues. End of life issues are still difficult, just because you know how much of the brain has to be dead before the person is gone. If the whole brain is dead and all you have left is a body that might have a beating heart or something, and functioning organs, are you going to keep that body alive? We've never Brain death is medical death, and legal death. And you know we've never revived a person whose brain was dead. Um, so we've never brought someone back from that state, and I suspect we never will, because once those cells start to go. But at what stage? There's because brain death is a process too. So you lose functionality and brain capacity to carry out functions and interactions and things. Uh, the more you go, and it's not even there. It's not 100% or 0%. It's not on or off. There are states, and we can see, we know that there are people who have get into car accidents and things, and who the paramedics come and save them, but they lose a lot of their brain capacity, their intelligence, and their just capacity to function and get around by themselves. So and certainly there's still personhood there when you have a person that can interact and respond and things, but you get into a vegetative state, and what's left? It's the shell of a
Nothing.
person. Yeah, yeah. So, but and when I was a believer, I this is one of the things that I delved into because I wanted to have a political outlook and a political agenda that I thought reflected Christian values and things. And when I started to really push into the issue and look at Roe versus Wade and some of the arguments for abortion, or for at least the legalization of abortion, I found those arguments compelling, and I think a lot of the people on the pro-life side don't even want to hear that kind of stuff.
Well, yeah, I
It's
mean, of course they don't want to hear it because, like you said, they think it's a black and white issue.
yeah,
Never mind the fact that most abortions are done before 12 weeks. That means no nervous system. We're talking about like, zygotes and embryos. And as far as I'm concerned, for these pro-lifers to sit there and say that destroying these zygotes and whatever they're called, that's the same as shooting that's the same as shooting a 32-year-old man in the head. It's lunacy, really.
yeah, absolutely, yeah. Um, Yeah, well, and uh, the other thing that really makes it murky is there are all kinds of weird things that happen in embryonic development that um, there's no other time in our existence that this can possibly occur, like the splitting of one egg and cell mass into two separate things. You can have twinning, and you can also have conjoined twins, where you have any kind of attachment arrangement that you can think of, and that can get really strange and weird. And if you have two um, babies that are conjoined, and they're sharing organs and things, decisions have to be made about what do you do there. If they there are situations where if they're left the way they are, they will both die. And this is after they've been delivered, in a lot of cases, that they were carried to term. And then you have conjoined twins that you have to probably sacrifice, and parents have to make sacrifices of the one that they think is going to most probably have a normal life, or something representing or close to a normal life. They're not easy decisions, and nobody wants to have to make those kinds of decisions. But do you want to have the government then come down and say, no, the doctor and the families can't separate conjoined twins if it risks killing a brain, one of the brains that exists, or
Or if it
whatever.
threatens the life of a mother.
Yeah, yeah. um, and and some of these things, there are certain medical conditions that can occur that aren't manifest in a way that can be detected until later in the pregnancy. And absolutely nobody wants. Everybody wants to have this ideal picture. That's what nobody wants a troubled pregnancy. Nobody wants a child that's unhealthy and whatever. But we live in a world where all of these things occur, and difficult and painful, gut wrenching decisions have to be made. I want to put these pro life people into the offices where a doctor is explaining options to parents that are having to make these choices, and then try and see what their proposed complete 100% ban on abortion kind of legislation that they often support would do in those kinds of situations. Um,
Yeah, especially when, like I said, when it threatens the life of the mother, or even if it threatens the life of a child. I would love for them to be in that room and sit there and say, "Oh, well, you can't have this abortion,
yeah,
even though it may kill you."
yeah. Well, and then this is the thing that really changed my mind about the issue, is the fact that, let's say, ideally, in an ideal world, there would be no abortions, and then you examine it and you bring up these exceptions and say, okay, well, okay, I can see, to save the life of the mother, that's that's my one exception. And that's what a lot of the Christians will say. They won't even say, in some cases, that someone that's been raped should be allowed to have an abortion. But there are some people that will say that, and so there may be two exceptions: the life of the mother and a rape. Okay, let's say that there's just the one exception. Who is going to make those you know decisions about when it is and when it is not the life of the mother? You're going to have someone sit in front of a judge and have their personal, and maybe a jury, have their personal medical history and information presented in a court or something. What's the legal mechanism that's going to make those kinds of determinations? It's just not feasible in our system.
Exactly.
So, yeah, and the other thing that Tommy brought up or said, would it be okay for you to kill kill a baby? Where was it? Oh, a blast to the head of an infant with a 44, would that do? He said, because I had said, look, this is a brief moment of maybe pain in an individual that doesn't even know what pain means, is not conscious, is not able to process and understand what's going on, and then it's done. And so I was just trying to put things into perspective. We put pets to sleep, um, and it's not fun. People don't do it, hopefully not for fun. It's a difficult choice. I just had a friend of mine on Facebook who posted about he had to put his cat of 22 years down because the cat had cancer and was just suffering. And we allow for that for animals, but we try and do it in the most humane way possible, and it's to end the suffering. And in some cases, the doctors can tell that the baby has a medical condition that's just going to be a life full of suffering and pain. I mean, there are medical conditions where the baby might be born and might not even last long, because it's going to have intensive medical supports necessary. It will have any manner of operations. I had a niece who was born with a valve issue in her heart, and she only lived for like 2 weeks. Had, I think, at least two operations during that period of 2 weeks, and it was a horrific little existence. And then she died. Now, they didn't know about that condition until she was born. But And I know, that my sister would never have, you know, tried to abort, because we were a very devoutly religious family, and that just wasn't even something that would have registered on any of our radars. But um, I think in hindsight, if we had known, that might have been the more humane decision, and it certainly would have been uh, easier, I think, emotionally on my sister, and financially on my sister and her family as well. So, um, if it was possible to have foreseen the kind of existence that little baby had for those 2 weeks, and there are other conditions that are actually we can detect and know, where the baby will have a very short and life, a short existence of just suffering and pain. Um, so Tommy is here.
Hello. How are you?
All right, how are you, sir?
I'm doing well. I just saw your message, or I saw your post and your hangout, so thought I'd join.
Yeah, I'm glad you did. We were discussing the post and some of the conversation that we had.
hmm
So,
Well, y'all carry on, and I'll chime in, I suppose.
well,
Are both y'all on the same page, or?
yeah, I think we're pretty much on the same page here.
Yeah.
Okay. Where to begin?
Well, so I was just talking about the fact, like, you had asked if taking a 44 Magnum to the head of an infant
Uh-huh.
would be acceptable, and my answer is, of course, no. I mean, we do things ideally in a way that reduces suffering, uh, and does it in the most humane way possible. Just like we don't accept people going around and just shooting dogs or cats. Uh, that's not moral. It's not appropriate. Now there are times when it's acceptable to put an animal down,
hmm
and put them to sleep, and we do that in a way that hopefully is the least amount of pain and suffering for the animal.
Well, let's see. So what you said was, let me go back. I'm reading this through this thread. Okay, so you said the reason I said that about the 44 was you said in regards to the baby or fetus being terminated, you said there's no awareness at all, no experience, no consciousness, no meaning, a moment of brief pain and then nothing. So that's what I was responding to. I quoted you. I said a moment of brief pain and then nothing. So that's what I was talking about, and I said you could basically accomplish the same thing with a 44 to the head, a moment of brief pain and then nothing. And so I was trying to get you to understand that just because someone doesn't feel something or isn't aware of it doesn't necessarily make it okay to do it.
Right. Well, but the circumstances ideally would be where there's some moral reason for terminating the pregnancy. I mean, nobody thinks that it's just okay, and there's nothing to be considered. I've never heard of somebody that's cavalier about terminating a pregnancy.
Well, but that's what the law is. I mean, you can be cavalier by law. You can just say, well, for whatever reason, the law says for whatever reason you have, it's okay to do it. So, yeah, if we had a law that said, yeah, there has to be a great moral reason, such as your life is on the line, people could argue, if rape happened or whatever, but there is no such, the law doesn't stipulate that.
Right. Okay. So, and we mentioned this earlier, but what would be the mechanism, the legal mechanism for making those determinations on a case-by-case basis?
Well, I mean, for me, it's very easy. I would say ending the life, an innocent life like that, is off limits unless there's dire circumstances where the mother's life is in, jeopardy
Right, but how
or
do
her
you,
health.
is
So other than that, no.
from a legal perspective though, how do you get there? How do you say this person is okay to do it and this person is not?
I don't think anybody's okay to do it.
So you would outlaw abortion across the board, period, no matter what.
Unless the mother's life is in danger, yeah.
Okay, but that's an exception. So how do you
Okay.
determine in a legal setting, how do you say this person can go for it and because the mother's life is at risk and this person is not?
Well, because I'm just saying, if somebody's going to die, which nowadays is probably not normal with the way that, they can surgically remove babies, C-section. So,
So
but
does the
anyway,
person have to
assuming
go to before a judge and a jury, or what's the mechanism?
no, well, no, I think that's probably something between her husband, and her doctor.
Right.
So no courts involved in that. But yeah, if her life is on the line, then yeah, she should have that choice. I mean, if it's going to be one life or the other, something, you're going to have to make a decision, or she is.
Right. Yeah.
There.
And there are other cases where a baby's got a medical condition that they can detect beforehand, where they know that this baby is not going to be viable once it leaves the woman's body, and they can also determine that the baby will be in a great deal of pain and have a short-lived, painful life. Do
Yeah,
you
well, I
insist that
mean,
that baby goes through that?
look, I just, it's my opinion. I'm not saying that I'm right, or my opinion is more moral than yours. But in that particular situation, it's a tough situation. But I just don't think our nation, should be in the business of killing infants, no matter what.
Yeah, no, I don't think so
So
either.
I think it's a horrible situation that a baby would come out dead or sick or in pain and all that. But I think
Or
ultimately,
its heart, like
yeah,
outside of its rib cage, or its
yeah,
lungs
yeah.
floating out, or I mean, there are all kinds of things that go wrong biologically.
Yeah,
Uh,
I mean, yes,
Conjoined
these
twins with
severe situations that you bring up are difficult, but I just do not think that across the board killing and giving people the right to kill their unborn baby, who is not them, it's not their body, is the right thing to do.
right, but it should be up to the woman and her doctor. That's the bottom line, and there's not a legal mechanism that is expedient enough to make the determinations, the kinds of determinations that you are talking about. And so the the thing that I think every one of us here who would vote pro-choice would like to see is a reduction in the number of abortions. Nobody wants there to be a high number of abortions, but we want to accomplish that by allowing people to have access to birth control so they don't get pregnant when they're not wanting to, and so that we can have education about, sex education that reduces those unwanted pregnancies and unexpected pregnancies, and then what we can do is hopefully move people toward more compassionate alternatives and things. I'm all for people adopting and for people making better choices. Nobody wants late term abortions, especially. Those are difficult for everybody involved. But there are even cases where even a late term abortion is just medically necessary.
Okay, well, here's the thing. You were talking about the situation about the infant that has major problems, and that is an issue. But there have been times, and I've heard of many, where doctors have predicted that something terrible would happen to the baby. Would come out, disfigured, disformed, malformed or whatever. And as it turned out, it actually wasn't all that bad. And so the problem is you have this sort of slippery slope that could develop if people's kids, these babies, are not absolutely perfect. Some parents, maybe many parents, maybe a large portion of the parents down the road might just decide, well, this one doesn't have thumbs. I mean, or this one, this or that's wrong with it. So that's kind of the road I see as a real possibility. And it may already happen to some degree, but so that's I see. The unfortunate instance where a baby's born and something's terribly wrong with it is terribly bad. But I think the alternative could be worse.
In what way?
Well, because you could have a lot more otherwise healthy babies aborted for no apparent reason, and these might be babies that somebody like me or other parents, adoptee parents, would take, even if the biological parents wouldn't take them.
Okay. You realize that I think as much as a third of all pregnancies, maybe more, I think I've seen some sources that say as much as half of all fertilized eggs terminate naturally with no outside influence or anything.
Mm-hmm. Well, I don't think, life is, I see life as kind of rather miraculous, and I think, there's something miraculous about being alive. There's something almost kind of weirdly miraculous about maybe even dying, and also coming into the world. I think it was who was that died recently? The CEO of not Microsoft, Bill Gates, not Bill Gates.
Steve Jobs.
Steve Jobs. What was his last words? It had something to do with, I think it was like wow, 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 or something in the last couple of minutes of his life. So the point is that there's something, I think, going to be kind of in a weird way, maybe kind of wonderful about dying, in a sort of a natural way. And a pregnancy that terminates, I think life probably has a way of terminating a baby humanely, as opposed to an abortion where a doctor sticks in stabs the baby in the skull with a knife and sucks out its brains with a vacuum. I think you're comparing apples to oranges. Just because the baby dies doesn't necessarily mean it's a humane way to do it.
Right. Well, remember when that fetus said "wow, wow" when he was aborted?
No, that was Steve Jobs.
Oh, okay.
Well, we don't know what fetuses say or think.
They don't think or say anything.
How do you know that?
Because nobody has memories from when they were babies, because you need language to be.
Do they have a nervous
even
system?
Have memories?
Do they have a spinal column? Do they have feelings?
It depends on what stage of the pregnancy, or what stage of the pregnancy.
Well, you're willing to kill all of them, so I'm up until the 9th month. I mean, they have fully developed in some situations.
Right. There are all throughout the stages of life. There are times when we pull the plug on patients because that's medically the best choice to make. We do this, and we have the capacity in some cases to keep people alive, their bodies alive, beyond the point when their brains are even alive. And kind of to move us back toward the title of this hangout, what makes a person a person? It's our capacity to think and understand and experience the world. Fetuses have no capacity to
You don't know that.
understand. I was there. I mean, part of me was there.
You don't remember.
Right.
You don't remember, but you don't remember what you did or thought when you were 1 year old either, or 6 months. That doesn't mean that they're not thinking, that you didn't think as a 6-month-old or feel pain.
Yeah, but you had more capacity to interact and respond and things at that point, right? I mean, a 1-year-old has more capacity to interact and things than a 2-week-old.
Well, all their brain connections aren't quite, connected yet. But that doesn't mean that they don't have, like I say, a fully functional nervous system and feelings and ability to think. They haven't made those connections yet in the way that they've learned stuff or can vocalize stuff. But that doesn't mean they don't have that inner, what am I trying to say, that inner experience of kind of knowing what's going on and feeling and sensations and thoughts and all that stuff along the way.
In what way? In what way would they experience and have thoughts?
Well, you see, you're looking at it kind of as a different, coming from a different way than I am. See, I think consciousness is primary, and granted, we need a fully functional brain, not fully functional, but a brain that is functional to be able to manifest that in a full way. But I think consciousness is first, and the body is the slave, or that's kind of a downhill thing after consciousness. You're looking at the ability to think as something that happens ultimately because after the brain is built. See, I don't necessarily believe that. I can't prove it, but I think the ability to think and know isn't necessarily tied specifically to the physical brain. I think existence and consciousness is in itself non-physical. I think consciousness builds the brain as we're developing, not the other way around. You know, we've got 60 some trillion connections in the brain, you know, that have to get put together somehow,
Right.
Coordinated during development. And you know, there's just a few genes that are associated with the brain. You know, to assume that just a few genes makes all those connections and all that is really far-fetched. I think consciousness is the real miracle worker in life. And I think the brain is built from consciousness, which is the actual mechanism of creation and bodily development. So, you know, if consciousness is primary, I think thought isn't necessarily dependent on neurons or, you know, that kind of thing.
Yeah, mischievous heathen captured my thought exactly there in the comment section that the answer is magics. I mean, there's
It is magic.
well, that's just peachy, but there's
Or I'll say non-scientific. Put it that way.
Yeah, well, it's there's nothing to that. I mean, you could say magic pixies knit us together, and there's just no foundation for that at all.
Well, you have no foundation as well for yours because
It's based on what we can observe and see. We can see that there's development. We have experiences that start after we develop language, and we can have memories and things because those memories have to be structured around some kind of language that's there.
Mm-hmm. But that doesn't mean. Here's the thing: when you're young, I think as we've already discussed, when you're young, you sort of forget what you learned, what you knew, what you experienced. So, as a 6-month-old, even though you may be fully aware and conscious of what's going on around you, recognize your mom and talk to, or listen to her speak, and maybe learn how to speak and all that stuff. But you'll eventually forget that stuff. But that doesn't mean you're any less of a human at that moment.
No, I don't think that you're less of a human, and I don't. I'm not advocating for, that we should ease up or think that infants are less important or something than other human beings. But
well, you kind of are, because you wouldn't kill other human beings, so you kind of are.
No, but there are times when we do allow the people to die, and there are times when we even take action to terminate a life, and when we can prolong it, and the primary, I think, determination there was as to when that is appropriate, is when there will be increased or prolonged suffering of that individual, especially in the future. So I think that weighs more heavily than any other consideration.
Well, see the thing about it with me specifically is the fact that there are lots and lots of people waiting in line, sometimes for years, to get a baby. So it's not like people aren't out there that are willing recipients of these babies. So that's what really rubs me the wrong way. You could make a case, and it may not be a bad case for any baby that's just horribly malformed. You can make a case for that, but otherwise, and I'm speaking as an adopted kid, so I have a bias, I admit, but that's the thing. I mean, it just seems like it's just a selfish act. It's a cruel act. It's an inhumane act that could be, how much more beautiful is it to give that baby to some loving parents if you don't want it? That's the most beautiful, loving thing that people can do, and that's what society should encourage.
Yeah, well, I'm fine with encouraging that. I'm fine with encouraging. Yeah, go ahead, atheist. I'm sorry.
No, I was saying that's not what happens most of the time. Most of the time, when I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought here. Most of them go up in the foster care system. Most of them don't get adopted.
Well, I mean, it's not for a lack of people eager and waiting for them.
Oh yeah, I know that. I'm just saying most women who give their babies up for adoption, most of them end up in the foster care system.
That's not true.
They end up with parents who don't care about them at all.
That's not true.
Yeah, it is.
The kids in the foster system are generally kids that come from divorced parents or abusive parents. They're older kids. They're not infants.
Yeah, I do know that because I've had 3 sisters who grew up in the foster care system, and it was hell for them.
Yeah, I'm sure it's not a great situation. I mean, that's a different subject, but generally the infants get adopted out, and it's the kids who come from abused families or whatnot that end up in foster care. That's the general rule. I mean, parents are so desperate here, they go off to other countries, China and Russia and all these other countries to find a baby.
I think that's sometimes because they can get them cheaper there, and also there are parents that have taken moral umbrage to the kind of Chinese disparaging of female babies and things, which is a terrible thing. There's no question about that, but I mean, I think I don't know that Western parents all rushing into China and grabbing up a bunch of female babies from China is going to solve the cultural problem that's there in China.
Well, no, it's not designed to solve the cultural problems. It's just the fact that some parents here want a baby so bad they'll go to China to get it. Yeah. I will be right back.
So Wolf has joined us. Wolf, do you want to chime in?
It is kind of convenient that he bailed out right when Wolf got in.
Exactly.
He's like, oh shit, it's an angry black guy, I'm out!
Yeah. Shit's about to go down.
Damn it! Now we're all waiting for him to come back. I'm sorry, Gabby, I was just talking shit because I didn't have any... I just jumped into the conversation. I didn't want to interrupt, so...
Okay. Yeah, there's Wolf. I made a post to you tonight, Wolf. The reason that I brought up the food stamp thing had nothing to do with race. I don't know if you read my post or not, did you? I put your name in it.
I might have seen it.
Huh?
I think I might have seen it in my post. I didn't read it fully.
It was only like 6, 7, 8, 9 lines. The issue was when we talked a while back. I asked what you did for a living. You said you were a freelance writer. And
Yep.
So, how old are you? Are you in your early 20s?
23.
Okay, so you're 23. You spend half your day on here. You're a freelance writer. That just kind of screams unemployed. And so on the heels of you constantly ridiculing me for what I do in my living, that's what the response that I came back with you is what I said about the food stamps. It had nothing to do at all with race. So this whole garbage on JD's Hangout about how I'm a racist is just BS.
I don't collect food stamps for one, dude. So I
Okay,
don't know
well,
where the
that's
hell
fine. Well, you accused me of having relations with my dad, so I don't do that either. So what I said about your food stamps pales in
that was
comparison
actually
to giving my dad a blowjob. So,
Well, I mean, when you say something obviously fucking racist, I mean, what else am I supposed to say?
It wasn't racist. It had nothing to do with race.
All right, guys. I would
I mean,
like to.
I mean, I'm not in.
What did I say about race at all?
I didn't come in here. I didn't come in here to get started with you about this, man. I mean, it's already been put up. I mean, I'm not really, it's been done. I mean, like, I don't bitch like Beckler or Jim about this shit. I mean, you don't have to friggin' you come up with an excuse. I don't bother.
I would like this hangout not to be about that conversation and that topic.
Well, we got that.
I was just gonna say that I'm a white person in California. What do I know? But I would say that when you call a black man crack and also welfare, you make those references.
Did you hear what I just said?
I saw the string.
Well, to be honest with you, that was the second guy, and he fucking followed me around until I did the Jesse Jackson thing out of South Park. Dude, just kiss my ass, and you don't have to be bothered.
Yeah.
At least.
First of all, I didn't say welfare. I didn't say anything about crack. I said I just explained the whole thing about food stamps. So it had nothing to do with race at all.
Okay.
So anyway.
Yeah.
So what makes a person a person?
There you go.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And quite honestly, if you wouldn't follow me around making fun of my profession, maybe those kind of comments wouldn't come back.
Okay, let me just explain that real quick. Here's the thing. First off, here's the thing. If you want to frickin', I don't mind that you're into landscaping. That's irrelevant. The only time I actually bring that up is when you actually talk about scientific claims that honestly that you're not really
Well, then debate me. I don't care if you bring up landscaping or not, but just debate me and about the actual issue. I'd love to debate you anytime.
Yeah, and here's the thing that hardly ever even fucking happens.
Okay, fine. I mean, I'm just saying if you're going to keep bringing it up, then just expect something to come back in return eventually.
Hey, Tommy, I got a question for you.
Okay.
My husband's in landscaping as well. He's a landscape construction and design. But he has a question for you. He wanted to know if you were a mow, blow, and go kind of guy. That's what he calls maintenance. So if you want to know.
You know what? I'll answer that by saying yes and no. Actually, I make the majority of a large portion of my income doing that. And that's actually, I've been doing it a long time, and I've tried a lot of different sort of ways to do it. And that particular philosophy is, for me, the best way to go. Now, I actually make money a different way, and that is through landscaping and sprinklers. So I kind of make money in chunks that way, but just kind of the regular income is just kind of the quick mow and go.
If you guys didn't know anything about landscaping, actually, irrigation does take some thought, and it does take some work, and it's not just herpaderp. So there is some intelligence to the profession. So all you blue collar shamers out there, just saying, it doesn't mean that he's a scientist, but it doesn't mean that he's a herpaderp necessarily either.
Well, I was just curious though, because usually the mow and go label is kind of if you're kind of in this industry, for lack of a better word, it's kind of it's like, oh, you're one of those guys. So I was just curious what your husband, is he sort of against that philosophy, or what is he? Where's he coming from?
I mean, we live in California where a lot of the landscaping is done by illegals. I'm sorry, but it is. And with that, we'll finish with the lawn mowing. Hang on, I'll finish it up. But with that, basically people throw a lawnmower in the back of their truck and a couple rakes and a blower and say, "Hey, I'm a landscaper," and it is a kind of a joke. Like they have no other skills. They just kind of it's
Okay,
like saying I got a chainsaw now. I'm an arborist. So,
okay, I see what you're saying.
Yeah. Nothing wrong with maintenance. Maintenance is sort of a bread and butter kind of income. So anyway.
Yeah. Okay, I thought you were kind of meaning a different way because there's certain types of lawn services that they kind of cater to the $1 million home, and they're into meticulous sort of maintenance, and they kind of frown on the little guy who is in and out real quick, does kind of a pretty good job but not a great job. Whereas my philosophy is to get a whole bunch of yards. We've got like almost 300 yards that we do every week, and we do a lot of them. We put them all, we get them all in the same area. I also have Mexicanos, and we just blow through them. I mean, it's fast, and we get in and out quick, and I don't do a lot of frills on the maintenance side. So anyway, I don't know if that answers your question, but
no, it does. I was just curious.
Yeah. So, but there's more to it. I mean, I stay busy doing. I mean, we do patios and big landscape jobs too. So it's all fun.
Well.
Anyway, back to the abortion.
Holy shit! I fell asleep.
Sorry.
Let's talk about rakes.
Rakes. I prefer blowers, and don't cut that out. Don't cut that out and use it against me.
Man shall not suffer a man with a blower before 9 a.m.
I know what I'm gonna use later.
I'm gonna be on video.
Let me see. I'm looking through the comment section there. On that comment thread where we initially were engaged earlier today, Tommy, there was a Shawnican Skywalker person who says, why are animal and certain insects and eggs protected by law, yet early pregnancy abortion is okay? Is that a question that you have as someone who's pro-life, or that you think is...
Yeah, I mean, it's irritating that, a lot of the people, especially on the left, these environmentalists will go to their deaths to protect a tree, and, they'll shut down whole construction jobs. In Texas, highway construction jobs have been completely rerouted and aborted, for lack of a better word, for a spider that's been... its habitat has been destroyed or is being destroyed with this highway system. Yet, when it comes to developing embryos or developing babies or even 9 months full-term babies, those can all be just eliminated and no problem. So it seems like hypocrisy, and that our values are upside down.
Does anyone in the panel here want to tackle that?
No, because I like trees better than kids.
And I believe most of those species are endangered. That's why they're protected.
Yeah.
So that's a spider.
Yeah. There's an issue called biodiversity that, as participants and citizens of the planet, we all benefit from having diverse species. There's also what's known as kind of the food web, and this interdependence of life in certain areas, all around the Earth. In certain places, that structure, that biological structure, is very fragile and can be offset by eliminating, one or two kind of linchpin species, and a lot of times, it's biologists I've read that it's some of these small organisms that we kind of just walk past and don't ever notice, that are really doing a lot of the hard grunt work in the ecological system, because they keep other things in check. So, like spiders, for example, can keep in check certain other insects, and they can perform a very important role in that ecosystem.
See, I would say that if you save a developing baby, that they could perform an important role for adoptive parents, and for society as a whole. So,
but the difference there is that we're not talking about wiping out all babies. That's the nature of extinction of the species.
Well, I don't think you would be wiping out all spiders by, cutting a freeway through some open land. and if it does, then they're probably on their way out anyway. If a single road construction project is going to wipe out the rest of what's there, they're probably on their way out.
That's a very gross oversimplification of things, actually.
Maybe.
I mean, I don't even see a correlation between the two, actually, but, I don't know if you caught my original post, Gabby, but I said it's always entertaining to watch two privileged white males discuss what women can do with their bodies.
I know, I thought you guys needed some estrogen, so I hopped in.
Glad you could join us.
Because, I mean, that's you guys. You're all men in here, aren't you?
It's not a real good example to say that someone, first of all, saying someone's an environmentalist with disdain, I don't even understand how that's even a thing, unless you're just kind of some right-wing shill, but, I get what you're saying about people going to ridiculous lengths to, like, save a tree and chaining themselves up naked, and, you know what I mean? That could be a little ridiculous, but to make an oversimplistic correlation between a spider, stopping a freeway from going through, I'm just not seeing it as a very good example.
Well, but there are quite a few stripes of environmentalists who will, they will freak out if rats or other organisms are tested by the scientific community, and rats and other organisms aren't necessarily endangered, if they just are up in arms at the cruelty of it, yet they're not necessarily going to be up in arms over the cruelty of a late-term abortion. So it just strikes me as highly hypocritical.
But are you basing your opinion on the fringe group? So in other words, when we talk about theists and stuff like that, sometimes we refer to the extreme views, right? So moderates and stuff like that will be like, no, that's those guys over there. So is it fair for you to appeal to that small group of guys that want to freak out and light themselves on fire because a rat got experimented on?
I'm just saying it strikes me as, for those people who do that, I doubt most of them are pro-life and would stand in line and picket, or march in a parade against late-term abortions. Yet they will picket and protest about a rat being experimented on. It doesn't make any sense.
No.
I'm not saying there's a lot of you. I'm just saying there's enough of them.
I understand your point, but I mean, we're talking about a hypothetical group of hypothetical people, and then we're speculating on their opinion. I mean, it's kind of pointless, don't you think?
Well, unless you think they don't exist. I'm pretty sure they exist.
No, I mean, we all know that. Okay, you're saying environmentalists, and then you're referring to like this fringe group of guys who are kind of being hypocritical about animal experimentation and stuff like that. And that's fine. I know there are people out there that are like that, which wasn't my point. But I'm saying we don't know if they're pro-life or pro-choice, or if there's somebody between, there's probably a mix. But just, I mean, we can't say one way or the other what that is. It's all speculation. So it's not making a very strong point. That's just, it's not very convincing to me. Am I alone here?
Well, I think most environmentalists are lean left. You don't see too many, right-wing environmentalists. I'm sure there are some, and sure enough, I'm probably, painting with a broad brush here, but But I think generally that's probably true. They're probably leftist environmentalists, and they're
Yeah.
probably against pro-life.
I agree I agree with that actually, but that left and that right, that description is so large and vague and encompasses so much that I wouldn't even attempt to like put a particular person in. You know what I mean? To say that a person's leftist doesn't mean they're like so far to the left they've fallen off the table. You know what I'm saying? You know what I mean? It's just so.
Yeah, I know.
I get this is Google, and we post shit, and we post articles, and we talk shit, and this and that. And you and I have even gotten into some scraps on comments and stuff like that. But I would just, if we're talking about groups of people like that, we should really, first of all, we're way off topic, right, Gabby?
No, I don't think so. That was a comment in the thread that actually initiated the hangout. So.
Because I can totally go off about leaf blowers if that'll bring it back.
Let's not do that.
Oh, please don't. Please
What type of
don't.
leaf blower do you use?
Jackson just jumped out of her chair right now. She was like, "Sweet." I'm just saying. Okay, I'll pass the buck. I've been talking for a while.
I was just gonna say, there's depending on what's happening with, the what do you call it, the testing, the experimentation with animals and things. I think there's a limit that needs to be put on there. Like, are people doing things that cause unnecessary harm and suffering to the animals, even injecting them with diseases, which I know it's got to be done in a lot of cases, so that we can test drugs and things to hopefully save lives of human beings, and I can see that. But there have been experiments where they've really taken animals and done some really terrible, horrible things to them, and I think that there is a moral consideration to be taken, when looking at those practices and say, well, look, this is going too far, and protecting the animals.
I agree with that. Actually, I can see. I wouldn't be the type that would go protest it or anything, but
neither would I.
I think some of those animal experiments are probably inhumane or cruel, and I don't know what the answer is. I know they've got to do some of them for medical research supposedly, but I have a heart for animals just like I have a heart for humanity. So I don't think I would put animals on the same level as humanity. So I don't think they should have the same protection.
No, I would agree with that.
So
a lot of animals aren't self-aware necessarily. So I think that's the main thing of what defines a person is self-awareness.
Well, enlightened self-awareness. Dogs are very much self-aware. They know where their balls are to lick them. Okay? Like, they are self-aware, but the notion of enlightened self-awareness, the idea of sentience.
By that definition, I'm self-aware.
You sure are, buddy. If you can lick your own balls, knock yourself out.
All the more power to you.
I pulled a hammy trying.
So why do you think they're not sentient on on some level, a dog sort of sentience? Because even if you guys
go ahead and talk philosophy to a dog, I'll wait.
No, I agree. They can't do that, but they may have dog sentience, whatever that is.
There's no such thing as dog sentience.
I don't know. I talk philosophy to my dog, and he tilts his head and goes, "Go on."
Well, that's a sign of intelligence. I'm not saying that animals aren't intelligent. One of the biggest signs of intelligence in a dog is the tilting of the head. Because the reason that they're tilting the head is because they're actually trying to gain a different perspective so they can understand what you're saying. So that is a sign of intelligence, but that's not the same as sentience.
Here's a clue. When a dog starts talking and asking for a dry martini, then that's sentience, the same sentience that we have.
They just have a different way of asking. They'll come up and wag and brush against your leg, and maybe sometimes they'll go over to the place where you keep that treat, and ask for it that way. It's just
okay. Well, the next time you're looking at your dog and you want to communicate, Tommy, look at your dog and say in the following tone, "Do you want me to strip the skin off your back and fuck you in the ass? Do you want me to strip it?" And I guarantee you it'll run for the leash and want to go outside.
Yeah, because they're looking for a ton. But one thing I will say though, that my dog knows when I'm sick. Like one time I was sick as a dog and I was laying in bed, and my dog knows that and is like, I will guard you, I will protect you. You know, like they know things
But that's knowledge and instinct.
Yeah.
Remember, we bred dogs for more than 50,000 years.
Mhm.
We've bred dogs away from wolves to the specific traits we were looking for in a dog. We bred them that way. We bred them so they would love us, so they would keep loving us. I mean, that's what we created, we sub-created them, we refined them. And that's not sentience.
I would think you guys who do believe in evolution, I mean, sentience had to start somewhere. So you would think, with your philosophy, with your science, whatever you want to call it, it would have started small and worked up slowly over time and gotten greater in animals that were more complex, ultimately leading into humans who have more sentience. Or
complication is not always desirable. It's not always a sign of quote unquote evolutionary success. Complication, I mean, we judge efficiency more through simplicity than we do complication. When was the last time you ever went to a drafting class and your teacher rewarded you because you put more doodads on the drafting picture? I mean, this is how we judge efficacy and capacity. It's more by simplicity than complication.
My point was that sentience, as opposed to coming with a bang all at one time, which would kind of infer a miracle, instead came.
No, it doesn't.
Even according to
no, you don't. No, you don't.
I said it would appear to be a miracle if it just came all together.
Don't.
Then how do you get it?
Yeah, so if to be fair, if sentience came all of a sudden, that evolution would have a difficult time explaining that away. I would think, right?
Go
ahead.
Explaining it away. I'm not really sure what you mean by explaining it away.
It's not supposed to make huge jumps like that. It's supposed to do it incremely, over time.
Yeah, and I think that's the case. That's probably how it did work.
I mean, and it kind of. I mean, you could look at the fossil record. I mean, with gradual, changes and stuff like this and transitions like Australopithecus and stuff like that, Homo habilis, their brain size and their cranium tends to increase. They could do more complex stuff like develop fire and tools and stuff like
right?
that.
Yeah,
I'm not married to the idea that that sentience just sort of went poof one day. No, I could sure. So, but that doesn't mean, I mean, Tommy, if you're basically saying that means that in 100,000 years we may be able to have a chess game with a whale, I'm like, hey, I hope I'm around for that. But in the meantime, we have sentience and they don't.
I got an idea, because there is, I mean, I'm just kind of scrolling through psychology today and some other things, and people are arguing that animals have sentience. Animals like dolphins, animals like orangutans, animals like canines. So there is an animal sentience, and so now my next question is, well, let's define that word, because we're going to be talking past each other. This definition is the ability to feel, perceive, or be conscious, or to experience subjectivity. Is that how we're defining it? How are we defining it?
That sounds like a decent enough definition, if a little clunky.
Well, animals can do that.
Yeah.
No,
I mean, what's that? Coco the gorilla that learned sign language and
grieve for a dead kitten.
Yeah,
and he also, or she also expressed sexual desire for one of her keepers. As a matter of fact, that was a running joke for a while, that you couldn't put hot male keepers around Coco because Coco would get crushes, and ape crushes aren't like human crushes. They run a little differently.
They're a little more crushing.
Well, it's not necessarily that Coco would be mean or savage about it, but she would be insistent. And Coco ultimately didn't understand why she couldn't simply mate with one of her human keepers. She didn't get it.
I think there's people that don't understand these things either.
Well, I think that's a flippance, Dieter, but I think you understand what I'm talking about.
Weird thing is, I actually saw George of the Jungle yesterday, and
you are George of the fucking Jungle.
I mean, there are people that have love affairs with their cars and their sheep. I mean...
Yeah. Really, Deidre? Really?
Just saying.
Really, Deidre?
I'm Tarzan.
Really, Deidre? Really?
I'm Black Tarzan. There you go.
We've got a great crew in here tonight.
Oh, yes, we do.
You guys are fun.
What the hell is that
someone-
animal? No, run. What in the hell is that animal? Is that like a capybara with a horn, or what the hell is that?
It's a Gava guy.
It's a Neuralgus Rex.
He made a video about it.
It doesn't look like a king of much.
Look like a dinosaur rat. Is that what it
It
is?
doesn't look like a dinosaur rat.
I thought it was a beaver.
It looks like a kangaroo's ugly cousin.
If it had its tail cut off and its head deformed.
Okay, well, we've proven like animals do have things like altruism, right? Like you see bonobos and you watch them and stuff like that, and some people argue bonobos are most like humans, right? And we see acts of altruism, acts of social structure, things like that. Are they not sentient? I mean,
Nope.
they cast out another bonobo for stealing out of the community, and they go, "Oh, we can't have that," and they cast them out. Does that doesn't make them self-aware?
Nope. Enlightened self-awareness.
Slightly
That's the problem. I mean, you know, try to explain Aristotle to a chimpanzee. You know, I mean, if a chimpanzee and a human baby grew up together, you could eventually explain to the human baby with a little bit of intervention. You could eventually explain to the human baby that the human baby is not a chimpanzee. You would have a hell of a time explaining to the chimpanzee that the chimpanzee was not a human.
I mean, here's the thing. Basically, if it doesn't go beyond food and sex, like we could talk about other stuff besides food and sex.
Dirtle beetle, food, sex, dirtle beetle. I know.
Fuck, good. Now you're fucking my concentration.
We see of acts of altruism, and I would point to that as being different than say just we need food or we need to procreate. So I don't know, you know.
There are animals that are capable of mimicking what you and I would consider virtues. As a matter of fact, they're capable of doing it so closely that functionally they're indistinguishable. But they don't necessarily come from the same place. And again, you know, most of these animals are completely incapable of abstract thought and higher reasoning. Completely incapable of it. And some of the ones that are capable only in the most limited sense. Like for instance, Tommy, you know, you could train your dog to know that when you come home, you want a beer. So you sit in your chair, and the dog goes over, sticks its snout in the beer in the fridge door, pulls open, grabs a beer, runs over and gives it to you. And you could teach the dog that you come home at the same time or roughly the same time every day, and this is what you want.
But he has to learn that at some point. I mean, in the beginning, he has to learn that.
But my point is that you couldn't turn around and in mid-delivery, turn around and explain to the dog that what you wanted was a juice. You couldn't do that.
No, my position is that they are sentient. They're just not sentient like we are. They have a different sort of
There is
awareness.
no differences in sentience. There is one definition of sentience, and that's it. Just like one definition of evolution, you don't go splitting that up. Same thing with sentience. Sentience is sentience, and it's either soft serve ice cream or it's not soft serve ice cream. That's what
I would just disagree. I would say there's a dog sort of consciousness and there's a cat sort of consciousness, and a horse. You know, a horse is going to be a horse no matter what its body looks like. It's
Nobody argues that with you. Nobody argues that a horse is a horse. Of course. Nobody argues that with you.
No, and the horse will kick you.
Can I jump in here? I think this might be helpful. There's a definition of sentience, which is the ability to feel, perceive, and experience subjectively. And I think that it's clear that animals are capable of experience and even emotion on some level. Like dogs and cats can experience fear, and they certainly have sense perception, right?
All animals experience fear, but you can't. When an animal is how do I put this? You cannot hack an animal's mind full of the type of information and capacity to higher thought that you can with a human.
Right.
Now,
So
this definition that you're using of sentient is deficient. It is a deficient definition.
I've heard in some conversations that delve into this subject matter, a distinction between sapience and sentience that I think might be useful. So sapience. Let me find a definition.
The problem I have, well, I understand what it is, but the problem I have with sapience is that it suggests without actually defining. It suggests that only things that descended from the common ancestor that we have with apes are capable of it. And as far as I'm concerned, if a dolphin ever popped out of the water and said, care for a soda, you don't want a soda? Okay, well, how about an Orangina? And that sort of thing. As far as I'm concerned, that dolphin would be as sentient as any Pithecine.
Right. I don't disagree with that. I think that's a fair observation.
But to say but to use the word sapient, it has connotations of the apes, and I don't necessarily think that's the best word to be used.
I don't know why you.
Animals display empathy. Animals display jealousy. Animals display resentment. Animals are affected after they've been abused.
I just can't
stress.
I
Animals
just
have
can't
sadness
pry
and
you.
grief.
I can't pry you out of the notion of the difference between emotions here and now and abstract and higher thought. I just can't.
What I'm trying to say is there's lesser evolved and there's further evolved.
Okay.
It's not that they're not sentient, it's that they're not as evolved.
They're not sentient. The sentience has a very, the definition you've been throwing at me is a deficient definition. It's not what sentience is.
I dislike the idea of, or the phrase higher evolved or lower evolved. I think,
yeah,
I
me
don't
too.
think that's a useful distinction there.
I think it's a distinction only humans would make, quite frankly.
So you're saying that like an eye, right? One of the lower or a lemur, one of the lower evolved apes is just as intelligent as say like a
I'm saying there are animals all over the world, and then over here there are humans, not special, just different.
But I'm saying like even within the apes and the monkeys and stuff like that, and you look at the big giant tree, you're going to see a big gap and difference between abilities and intelligence and emotion and things like that.
And no matter what that gap is, you are never going to find a giant gorilla able to do calculus. Never. They're not capable of it.
We have human beings that can't do calculus.
Yes, but they possess the capability.
Well,
it
is within the capacity of the species. Okay. And nobody who has ever tried to teach math to a silverback beyond basic arithmetic has ever been able to get it to happen.
I don't think that's what they're saying. I just Googled it, and I don't want to say I agree with Tommy. Holy shit! But pretty soon I'm gonna start making crackhead jokes.
That wasn't very fucking smooth, Tommy. By the way.
We've already been through that.
Yeah, maybe, but my voice says, and since my voice is here just now, that's not very fucking smooth.
Okay, well I didn't say that first of all.
Okay, can we get into this again, please?
Yeah,
this was the first part of the hangout.
Yes, well, it was the middle part, and let's not make it the latter part as well, please.
Exactly. Can we please not get into that again?
Yeah.
Well, just don't say shit then. Ain't nobody gonna haul you short on it.
All right.
Watch the hangout.
That's for a different hangout. Thank
Exactly.
you. Where were we? Heathen, you were talking.
Altruism. I think that was the topic.
He's gone. See what you've done? You've scared Heathen off.
I didn't see him leave. He's still here. He's here somewhere. Not my fault he ain't talking.
Well, as I was saying in the side chat, I believe that plants are, in a way, maybe in a plant sort of way, sentient.
Oh.
And there's
where's Sizor?
Oh no.
There's lots of biology.
I heard
there
you.
isn't
Lots of
any
science,
biology.
yes.
No, there
That's the
isn't
truth.
any science that says that plants have any awareness whatsoever. Where would that awareness? Where would that? Hang on, Wolfgang. Shush. Where would that awareness come from? What part of the plant's body would that awareness come from?
You know what? That's a good question, but there's something miraculous, I believe, about life. So I believe.
That's nice. I know that if I stick a screwdriver, through the front of your head, I will radically change your personality. I guarantee it.
Well,
What part of the plant do I stick the screwdriver through before I get it to go? Damn, I'm a dumb plant, not a smart one.
What part of your brain comes up with algebra answers? I mean, you could say your brain, but you can't really point to that little spot.
Yes, you can. Yes, you can.
No, you can't.
Yes, you can. There is a zone of your brain.
Okay, a zone is not. Is it a neuron? Is it a
what's
neuron
that?
or what?
There is a zone of your brain that if you mess with it, okay, because just like human beings tend to function best as a community, your brain tends to function best as a community of cohesive brain matter. So, and we know for a fact that there are different zones of your brain that govern different abilities that Tommy has. For instance, if I stick a screwdriver through one particular portion of your brain, suddenly you no longer possess the ability to talk. Something
yes,
that
there are zones
I would never welcome, I swear.
If you damage them, yes, it won't function correctly, but that doesn't answer the question as to where the answer came from.
The reason that I'm saying that, Tommy, is that because we can pinpoint see, if I stick a screwdriver through your heart, it doesn't affect your ability to talk, at least not for the time until you bleed out through your heart. However, what part of the plant exactly does the smarty part live in?
All of it.
Really?
I would say it's all intelligent. Yes.
Really? Mm-hmm. Really. So the fact that you're literally not dealing with the same sets of cellular structure in a plant stem, in a plant leaf, in a plant flower, and in the plants that do fruits, in a plant fruit, the fact that you're not dealing with the same kind of cellular structure in all 3 or 4 of those portions of the plant means that you have a capacity that spans 3 or 4 different types of cellular structures when you don't have the same thing in animals that have a more advanced cognitive capability.
Well, let me explain to you my logic.
I'll hear you answer that, please, before you go further.
I didn't really understand you.
So you weren't even listening.
Not really.
You weren't listening. Okay.
I just want to say really quick.
I'll tell you what, Tommy Tompkins, go back to calling people crackheads, and we'll talk to people who are capable of listening for a couple of minutes.
I just want to say really quick that phototropism, like for instance, let's talk plants really quick because Tommy Hall knows plants, right? You're in landscaping.
No. Listen. I asked him a very simple set of questions, and he couldn't even.
You had a very long sentence, guys.
I
didn't know there was a test at the end of it.
It was very simple.
We can either continue.
By the way, the next time you ask me a question more than a sentence, I'll forget how to listen too, and then I'll watch you jump up and down and make a face.
It's late.
Raising hands. Let me know when you're done.
We'll go to bed then, sweetie pie. Go to bed. Go get your glass of water and your plushie and have a sleep then if it's too rough for you. I mean, I find it really insulting. No, I find it unbelievably fucking insulting that I'll sit here and I'll listen to the entirety of one of your questions. I'll take as much of it in, and when I try to get you to pay attention to one of my questions, you're like,
I didn't really listen to that because, well, you're an atheist, so fuck you anyway.
You know what? As far as I'm concerned, that's a type of insulting that it prompts me to ask questions like, so how long have you been calling people of color crackheads? How long have you been doing that?
Will someone please tell him that I did not say that?
Yeah, for the record, he didn't call me a crackhead. He called me a food stamp collector.
Oh, okay. You're just lazy then. You're just lazy. You're not a crackhead.
Yeah.
I get it.
That was only after he accused me of giving my dad a blowjob. So.
No blow and go guy, you know.
Fucking lie. That was
I
That was after the fact. You called me a food stamp collector, and I said you were fucking your dad. That was after.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Hey, it's about my bedtime, and I think I'm going to go ahead and stop the broadcast now. We're kind of, the wheels are falling off of this hangout anyhow. You guys can continue on and have this conversation offline.
Hey, Bennett Berry, you can fuck off. How's that sound?
I did want to say something really quick, can I?
Yes. Go ahead, DJ.
I know that, Tommy, you're talking about plants having sentience, right? So we could look at something like phototropism, where plants grow towards the sun, right? That's all based on and you please excuse me because I'm actually going off my husband's knowledge and his biology class. But for what I remember, it's proteins that that are light sensitive that cause that to happen. There's no brain, there's no decision being made. I need to face here, but it's actually proteins that are causing that.
Wait a minute? You sure that wasn't too long a question for you? That wasn't too long for you? Do you want us to write that down for you,
Just let him answer.
No, because you know what? Like, this is bullshit. You know, because Deidre is a Christian, okay, then he will strive to listen to the statement that she makes. But because I'm an atheist, he's going to be a prick with it.
I'm sorry. Repeat the question.
A big old prick, and willfully ignore a question that I made as straightforward as possible.
Sometimes people get distracted.
No, nice try, but no.
Hey, it's just called giving people some
charity.
Charity.
Yes,
exactly.
Yes, that would be a wonderful
would it help if
concept.
I apologized? Would it help if
that would be a wonderful concept.
I'm sorry. If you'll repeat the question, I'll at least try to answer it. If you don't want to, that's fine. Either way.
Oh, okay. Well,
I
here
still
we'll
would
try.
like to be your friend, though.
Well, don't be a prick then. It's very easy to be my friend,
I'm
Tommy.
trying not to be.
Okay. Well, it's very simple. Okay.
Okay.
A plant can have anywhere from 3 to 4 different kinds of tissues. Okay, different kinds of cells, right? The stuff you find in the stalk, in the leaf, in the flower, and in the fruit. You follow so far? I've still got you? Good. Okay. So, a human or an animal, even let's say a rat, can have dozens of different types of specialized cells. And an animal with a brain that has any sort of cognitive function whatsoever, within that brain can have multiple different types of cells. Now, we know where the thinky parts of an animal is. So where are the thinky parts of the plant?
No, they don't.
Okay, let me just answer. Okay, I thought I did answer that. I said the whole thing is intelligent or thinky part. This is just my opinion. I can't prove it, but let me give you my explanation and my logic. It's when they test plants in certain ways, they tend to do things that are intelligent. For example, if a predator comes and starts munching on a particular grass or plant, a lot of times the plant that is being munched will send out distress signals to surrounding plants so that they can take precautions to protect themselves. There's all kinds of this sort of evidence that plants kind of plan for the future and or help their neighbors. There's also plants that can find their way through a maze. It's kind of like a mossy sort of plant, but this sort of thing has been tested, and so when you say plants don't make decisions, that's not necessarily true. I don't think the science shows that they don't make decisions. I think they exhibit intelligence in a variety of different ways, and so no, I can't prove it. I don't know where it would emerge, but I think it's just an output that can't be ignored.
How does a plant find its way through a maze?
Good question. I mean, if you Google it, you could probably read all about it. It's been a while since I've looked at it, but it's pretty miraculous. So,
all right.
Whatever. I can't say much about it.
All right. I appreciate everybody participating. I'm going to go ahead and stop the broadcast. Thanks, everybody, and have a good night.
All right. Thank you.